What's up? Carl Main coming at you in the place to be, the Carl Main Live Studios. All right, so here's the big deal. Enter the Thunderfuck. This is a clone of the Mr. Black Thunderclaw made by Aion Effects. The board is called the Taranis, I think. This is a super cool pedal. The thing that is neat about this is that it is a mishmash of several pedals that we all know and love without really being any one of them. Okay, so the clipping stage in here, which is derived from a rat, is a JRC 4558 op amp, acting as the gain amplifier. So the way that clipping works in a rat is that there's an op amp that amplifies the voltage of the signal, and then the output of that op amp is smashed into a pair of back-to-back clipping diodes. And that's how you get distortion, gain, out of the rat. Here it works the same, although there are some component value differences, but the basics of the circuit in the gain section are identical. After the gain section, there is a very cool two-band active tone control. So we've got highs and lows here. For each of them, sort of like on a tube screamer, if you turn them counterclockwise from 12 o'clock, you cut, and if you turn them clockwise from 12 o'clock, you boost. And as you'll see when I demo this, the effects are really pretty drastic. And then lastly, the way that the volume is controlled is using an op amp at the end. So you get, in practice, you get really stable volume control without a lot of noise, even when any of these knobs or all of these knobs are cranked. So you can have a ton of distortion happening here and have very little noise. The trade-off is that, as you'll see, I have to push this pretty hard when the gain is inactive in order to get unity gain out of it. So these controls do interact to a degree. As you get more gain, you're going to get more perceived volume out of the signal, and so you can attenuate from there. But it's pretty dramatic. What I'll say about this is it's not really a low gain pedal. It kicks in at about 9 o'clock on the gain pot, and from there on out, it's riding hot. So you might find that to your liking, you might not. If you're the type of player who uses a rat for low gain stuff, a more traditional rat circuit might be to your liking. So I'm going to play my clean tone here. I'm just running into like a Fender Twin emulation. I'm on the bridge pickup. Here we go. Okay, and now with all knobs at 12 o'clock, here we go. One second, I'll mute my mic so you don't get that pick noise in there. So that's with everything at noon. Now I'm going to turn down the distortion a little bit. I'm going to increase the highs just a tad, and I'm going to scoop some lows out, and you'll hear the difference. It's pretty reactive. So notice, unlike many distortion pedals, I've got the distortion pot all the way down right now. And I'm still pushing guitar signal, clear as day. There's just no distortion in it, right? Now I'm going to crank up the volume pot all the way. In fact, I'm going to crank up all these pots all the way so you can hear the noise floor. So that's with everything dimed. That's it. That's all the noise there is. And some of that is power supply noise, is that my power supply is kind of junky. With everything on full blast, you know, completely blasting out the audio interface preamp, that's all the noise you get. At any, you know, usable volume with any usable setting of these controls, it is inaudible. It's so quiet, which is like super cool. So now we're dialing back down to like closer to unity gain. There, and I swept my highs down, and you heard that really took it out, right? So there's distortion on max, and then as soon as I take those active highs out, all that noise goes away. I like the Rat with a little bit of scoopy stuff going on. Some people like the really woolly aspect of it. It's not for me. It gets too muddy. So I've got the lows at like 10 o'clock right now, the highs at like 1, volume at noon, distortion at noon. Guess is that this plays better with an already distorted amp, right? That is something in the vein of an orange or an electrical, or even maybe like a Sovtech or a Mad amp. You know what? Let's try it right now with a Sun Model T preamp and see what happens. Okay, so we're going to switch here to the Sun Model T emulation. And we'll give you a little bit of clean tone here just to set a standard. And of course, we know that with the Model T, we can get a whole heck of a lot of bass out of this circuit. I'm dialing, you know, everything out of it except some reverb. About as bone dry as guitar signals get, right? Let's kick on some Thunderfuck and see what happens. Yeah, I was right. It plays really well with solid state, or at least solid state sounding amps. I'm going to turn the distortion up, okay? so if you're still following along at home, we've switched to the neck pickup. I've turned the distortion all the way up. I've got the volume at about 1:30, 2 o'clock. And I've got both low and high pushing a little bit, like 1:30 or 2. And I'm getting big stoner toners, baby. It sounds good through a sun, right? Yeah, we know. But maybe you don't have a sun. Maybe you don't even have a sun emulation, a sun VST. You want to know what it sounds like through a basic bitch JCM 800. Okay, I can do that for you. Oh, my Lord. Here's a basic bitch JCM 800. I don't even really think it sounds that good. I'm gonna make it more like C.A.R.L's JCM. Actually, I got an idea. Master volumes on 4, presence is on 6, preamp gains on 7, but it can be lower, it can be around 6, it don't really matter. Here's what happens when we push it. So this is a learning together kind of moment, right? What I would tell you about this pedal is that because of the way that the volume circuit is integrated as an active component rather than a passive component in this circuit, this doesn't make a great boost for an already overdriven amp, because as far as I can tell, there is nothing that gives you push voltage-wise from that volume control. It's allowing you to get a lot of distortion character without absolutely slamming the volume. But I think the trade-off there is that you can't use it to push an amp that's already kind of on the edge of breakup into the type of characterful breakup that we like, that you'd want out of sort of a cleaner boost. But that's not really what this is. This is a distortion pedal. And what's more, it's a distortion pedal that both, it doesn't have the same fizzy character as like a Distortion Plus or an MXR or a DoD 250. It doesn't have that SD1 fizz to it. It's like a Rat with some more sophisticated EQing on it. It lets you tighten up the Rat, which is pretty cool, especially the capability to preserve treble and scoop out a lot of that thick low end, from like 250 and below. That's really helpful for a certain type of Rat player, right? So lots of people use the Rat for all sorts of different things, but to use the Rat for like a tight, like 80s hair metal-y kind of distortion, you need to be able to scoop some of that thickness out of it. And I think you can do it with this. The other thing I'll say about this is that although you can do that, this is not like an uber tight modern distortion, right? You're not going to take this and plug an 8-string guitar into this and push out your periphery licks with it. You need something different from this for that. But if you're using lots of distortion for music that doesn't require that type of single note harmonic clarity, I think this is a great choice. This is a really interesting pedal. I'm excited to get to know it with an actual tube amp, to plug it into my Mesa and see how it responds to that. But for right now, I think it's super capable. Cool pedal. I put an orange LED in it. I'll show you. Yeah, you can hear a little bit of that. Yeah, that's because I have the volume cranked all the way up. Ah. Tangled up in every damn thing under the sun. Just trying to show you my light. There's the light. The light of the world. It's Jesus. All right. Talk to you clowns later.